I recently remembered a discussion we had in one of my maths teacher training courses, and the trainer was asking us about a the misconceptions to do with moving a decimal point to when you're multiplying or dividing by 10 or 100 and so on. And didn't feel that there were any misconceptions introduced. I felt that there were, but I couldn't think exactly what the problem was. And so this video's attempting to respond to that idea. So let's see kind of the problem, I suppose. So let's begin with this situation. We've got a number, and rightly speaking, I think that somebody should not know what that number is. First of all, it's 5 what? There's always got to be 5 something, even if it's an abstract number. It's 5 somethings. And so in this case, I might say that I'm thinking that this is 50. And that wouldn't work for some people. And for others, they might see straight away, as soon as I've given them that information, they would fix it to the model of a place value table. And the tens and ones column would appear in their mind, perhaps. But for others, they would need the 0 would have to be explicitly put in. So let's start having a look at how these two ways of doing things might introduce problems, or at least one of those two ways. So let's get the number 350, and we're going to begin with that. Okay, and so the first thing I think we're going to have to think about is what happens when we multiply by 10. Well, let's put in a 0. That tends to work for some of the time. Now we all understand that that's not going to work forever, and it works for a certain kind of number, but it's a good way to build confidence when you just know about that kind of number. The next thing might be to divide by 100, and again that's going to be, we've got a way of doing it, which is to remove zeros. Again, problematic for certain numbers, but it works, and while it works, it might just be building confidence. That I guess we can say that that's fine. What if we happen to divide by 10 again? Now we've got to introduce something else. So we've got to have a decimal point, of course, and I think usually we would recommend this strategy for its speed at getting an answer, and the idea here is that we're going to move the decimal point one place to the left to represent that division. And all fine, we get the right answer, and that works for nearly any question I think we can think of. But does it really work? Well, it depends what we're doing. So in that example, we'll get our answers, but what picture are we painting about the number system? So let's have a look how that might play out with if we try to teach this, I suppose, but by reinforcing the place value table. Well, let's start with our 350. We're going to ignore the zeros. And we're just going to keep it like that. The place value table will do the job of the zeros and decimal point will do, is the idea. So that if we're going to multiply by 10, well, let's put the hundreds column in so that we can see it at least. If we're going to multiply by 10, then we're going to think about where those digits need to move and which columns they need to be in. There we go. So that's there. We've got our 3,500. That's that number. And then if we then divide by 100, we've got the same thing happening. So we haven't got, first of all, I suppose, those two things work in tandem, like multiplying by 100, dividing by 100. And so that really helps. And similarly, we don't need a new system when we are dividing now, even though we couldn't now remove a 0. But if we're going to divide by 10 again, we can do exactly what we've been doing. We might need to introduce new columns. We might need to learn about new columns, but they don't need to learn a new system. And we're reinforcing the system that works for, that will work for nearly everything. So that's the idea. And I suppose even more than that, we've got the idea that we have this much bigger system that we want to paint the picture of. So this is really what we're ideally, if this system is understood, then we don't need to worry about any of the other stuff. As soon as this system is understood, all of the multiplying by tens will work. We can, the zeros are not an issue. Your zeros are there to help when we don't know about the place value system. They're there to paint the place value system for us. They're not there to, that's the reason that they should be there. And then we can do our divisions by 100. We can do our divisions like that. We can introduce, so for example, instead of thousands, we could introduce kilo for kilometers, kilograms, and so on. And that will help us with our measurements and to understand those better as well. So it's just such a much more complete, or it's an explanation with so much more reach that I cannot understand why it would be worth, other than maybe at the very beginning, but I can't understand how it would be worth spending time using any explanations or any models of number that have so much less reach, when this is, I think, very much within our learners' grasps.